I thought the white supremacist or alt-right guys didn't have a thing for queers, but apparently I was wrong. Check out this particular story.
Black Lives Matter doesn't really care about black lives. It's, as we'll discuss shortly, more of a movement for attention, money, and, like most activism, more money.
Okay, that was really funny, listening to a white nationalist try to criticize Black Lives Matter, focused on attention and money, when that's all that idiot cares about. His name is Milo, I can't pronounce his last name.
All right, just in case you want to know what his last name is, it's Yiannopoulos. That's Yiannopoulos. Yiannopoulos. Okay, and that's a name that he took. This guy's actual name was Milo Yiannopoulos. Okay, and this guy's not even American. This guy was born in Kent, England, to a British mother and a Greek father, and his grandmother is reported to be Jewish. So this guy is one of the main gears at Breitbart, which is constantly spewing out, obviously, anti-black rhetoric, but they are also anti-Semitic. And this guy is constantly spewing out all of that stuff, especially the anti-Semitism stuff, and his grandmother happens to be Jewish. So that just goes to tell you that there is not only self-hate amongst black people, but there's self-hate amongst white people and Jews. And obviously, queer people. Now, the first time I saw this guy, excuse me, it brought to mind a movie. And the movie was An Officer and a Gentleman. And if any of you have seen it, that first basic scene where Lou Gossett Jr. asked this kid from Texas where he's from. And the kid said, well, I'm from Texas. And Lou Gossett Jr. said, there's only two things that come from Texas: steers and queers. Which one of those are you, boy? And I mean, I was cracking up when I thought about that line. But this guy, basically, the same thing could be said. There's only two things that come from Kent: steers and queers. Which one are you, boy? And basically, he's both, because he damn sure is queer, and he's got horns on his head because he really is a devil. So he's a devilish queer. Anyway, here's the story regarding quote-unquote supposedly freedom of speech, and Donald Trump trying to play the bully that he always does, talking about removing any kind of federal funds that go to this particular school because of the demonstrations against this particular guy speaking. And, I got to go along with the kids from the school that were demonstrating, obviously, from my point of view. But that also just lets you know that there were students that obviously had invited this guy to speak. So there's some white supremacists sitting on that Cal campus as well. But how the school could allow them to have this guy come in just let you know that the school wasn't thinking either. Now, in their defense, they may have been thinking about the freedom of speech deal, but at the same time, they had to know that this was going to create a huge firestorm with protests all over the place. Anyway, here's the clip from Roland Martin's show regarding this situation.
is something, but I don't even really care. But the bottom line is he's been speaking all across the country, appealing to various folks. And here's what he is: he's a gay conservative white nationalist. Now they say alt-right, but that's just not what it is. He's got the crazy hair. He says outlandish things. Trust me, folks, he's all about attention. He recently had a $250,000 book advance that was protested by lots of different people. I believe it was Simon and Schuster. I think that was the company. And so he's supposed to speak at University of California at Berkeley, and there were protests there. Some folks set something on fire, and then, of course, the Trump people all upset, and then Fox News was all upset. So Donald Trump tweeted that he threatened to pull the federal funding of the University of California at Berkeley because they protested this idiot. Joining us on the phone, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, of course, from California. So, Congresswoman, here you have a president threatening to pull the funding of a state university because one white nationalist couldn't speak there because they protested.
First, good morning. Let me just say, University of California at Berkeley, that's my alma mater. It's a great school. Secondly, protests are part of our democracy. The right to petition our government, the right to dissent, the right to protest, First Amendment right. Thirdly, the students were peacefully protesting. These students were not violent. And what took place, actually, was that some outsiders came, and we don't know who they are. I have my suspicions. But, started, acting in ways that the students were not acting in terms of the violence that was taking place. But one thing we have to really recognize is now with Steve Bannon and the White House on the National Security Council, the alt-right, Breitbart group, they're trying to take control of this government, and that is very dangerous, both on the inside and on the outside, in terms of rallying up people to try to support their very backwards, racist, nativist, and inflammatory agenda within the government. And so Donald Trump is placing people like this inside of the White House and then on the Security Council, and that has to stop.
Well, you're talking about Steve Bannon, of course, who the former leader of Breitbart, who's actually hiring a bunch of other people who work there, where he made it clear that that was the home of the alt-right, which we call white nationalists right here on this show. And so this is very clear. You also had what the reports that the Trump administration taking white supremacist groups off of the FBI's targeted list?
Yes, and they're making every move that really signals that they want to go back to where we're not going to let them go back to in terms of the days of Jim Crow segregation, and where there was carte blanche against African Americans, people of color, people, who are still fighting for their civil and human rights. Myself, the head of the Black Caucus, Hispanic Caucus, Asian Pacific American Caucus, and Progressive Caucus, we sent an open letter to Donald Trump, and we told him that he should really right away remove Steve Bannon from the National Security Council, because when you see these executive orders coming down, they reflect the views and the attitudes that are really quite un-American. And Steve Bannon and Milo Yiannopoulos, who was in Berkeley, who the students, because of First Amendment rights, the Republican students, had all of the arrangements for him to come there, and, even though no one disagreed with him and the students peacefully protested, but, we see this trend happening all over the country, and it's very dangerous. So we're trying to get Steve Bannon removed, first of all, from the White House and the National Security.
All right, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, we certainly appreciate you joining us. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Nice being with you.
Good.
Okay, just to let you know, I believe that those violent people within that protest were setups, basically. And they were brought in there because they knew that they were going to be obviously protest for this guy speaking. And I saw one clip where it looked like one woman basically went and attacked another woman And that's really when the stuff started. Now, one other thing that he mentioned was that the Trump administration is having the white supremacists removed from the FBI counter-violent extremist program. Okay, that is actually false. The counter-violent extremist change has not been officially made, and white supremacist groups, as of today, are still listed as threats in other counter-terrorism programs, okay? And even if it comes off of this specific program, it's still going to be on other programs. So all the white supremacists aren't being pulled from the list. Now, from all of the lists. It may, in fact, be pulled from one list, but they got multiple lists. Now, the other thing that I just wanted to let you guys know, if you weren't aware of it, Nancy Pelosi yesterday came out and called Steve Bannon a white supremacist. She did it not once, but twice. So it looks like certain Democrats are starting to take the gloves off, and they're calling this crap out for what it is. Now, Steve Bannon's not the only white supremacist that's sitting up there in the White House. There's another one by the name of Steve Miller, and based on the research I did, this guy is a flat-out, he ain't even trying to deny it, white supremacist. So stuff is happening, folks, and you better keep your eyes open as to what's going on. Now, let me play the balance of the clip from the Roland Martin show.
Appreciate it. Greg Carr, again, what you're dealing with here is for the President of the United States to tweet about this one guy, and you're going to pull all federal funding. Come on, this is beyond childish.
Roland, there's two things. Number one, federal funding not only is determined in part by accreditation, and Cal Berkeley is the crown jewel, as Barbara Lee said, of the system, but a lot of federal funding goes to research, which includes Defense Department, healthcare. I mean, first of all, that's foolish, so let's set that aside. But more importantly, what we have is a war between normalizing this kind of foolishness, as you said, this white supremacist conversation, white nationalism on one hand, and free speech on the other. This is where, Yiannopoulos is the same guy that trolled Leslie Jones using the First Amendment. Last night, Gavin McInnes at NYU, the students protested. These students have to be careful. Yes, everybody should protest, but I think the answer to bad speech is more speech. So let these guys come and fight them, but be careful, because what Bannon is trying to do is normalize this hate speech. But if you go too far in that direction, never forget, you got an Attorney General, Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, who may try to come down on our head and say that you're suppressing using the First Amendment. So it's very difficult.
Steve.
Yes. So first of all, if somebody is truly a white supremacist, they should never be invited to speak on any campus. That's my particular view. However, that doesn't justify people doing violence. I watched CNN while two Trump supporters were attacked. One was maced in the face. The other was they jostled. And there's no excuse for taking barricades and throwing through glass.
And we don't know who did that. And we don't know who did that. It did not have to be. It did not have to be the students, because the students at the University of California, Berkeley.
Julian, 1 second. Steve, finish.
Yes, so the fact that we don't know who it is doesn't mean it's not students. And you need to protect people from being attacked. But I just think we need some common sense. Republicans should not invite people if there's any question that they have any prejudice, and other people shouldn't use violence against people expressing their opinion. That's just common sense. I think everybody should be able to agree on that.
All right, let me circle back to what he initially said. Just because we don't know who it is, he claims we don't know that it's not students. So let me use the reverse. Just because we don't know who it is doesn't mean that it was students. If you don't know who it is, you can't make a claim either way.
The University of California at Berkeley, where I was a former professor, has a peaceful tradition of peaceful protest, and that's a continuation of that. There have always been anarchists. This guy could have set the people up. So let's not say that these students who don't do this, these students want to graduate. They don't want to go to jail. They didn't do this stuff. This guy set this up for his own purposes. Barbara Lee wouldn't say it, but I will.
Got it. Cleo, 20 seconds.
I think it's interesting what he's just said. The GOP brother just said about we shouldn't invite people who are white racists. Well, then we should turn on the TV, because every time you see the president, you're looking at one. And when you look at his whole cabinet, you're looking at several. So it's difficult, particularly right now with a Trump administration, to avoid having a white supremacist have a voice. Because every time we hear from the presidential administration, that's what we're hearing from.
All right, so, it is what it is. I think it was a setup. The university should have realized and banned this guy, and we're going to have to deal with freedom of speech because there's a limit even to the freedom of speech. And this guy's rhetoric, I think, is over the line as far as Milo Yiannopoulos is concerned.